I better get the microphone over here. And welcome back to another episode of the podcast. I'm batch recording a couple, so hence me, obviously, if I am in your ears for week number 2, in the same outfit is what I'm saying. But here we are because I'm working smarter, not harder. And today in your ears is kind of like a bit of a continuation of last week, but not really, but it's in and around the decisions that you are avoiding, other things that are costing you growth. And I want you to listen and hear that sentence a little bit louder, because decision fatigue is a real thing, I think, among business owners. And I think, whether you're out for a morning walk or you're, sitting at your desk or you are climbing a mountain while I'm in your ears, I'm really glad that you're here. Thank you for giving me your time. But I think that, you know by now that I discuss bold branding, I discuss strategic marketing, and I discuss you being able to build a profitable business that feels really good on the inside and looks good on the outside, because the inside's first. And today's one of those loving reality checks for you, because I want to ask you one question, and that is, what decision have you been avoiding? And I know that you know the answer, kind of feels a bit uncomfortable. That's okay. It's meant to. I see this a lot. All right. So brilliant business owners, really smart people all the time with incredible businesses. Yes, you do have an incredible business, because you wouldn't be here if you didn't, but you're stuck. Not you, they're stuck. I see this a lot. And I think that knowledge is power. And because we are continually upskilling and building our knowledge, I think, you're not stuck because you don't know enough. I think you're stuck more because you're just delaying some bigger decisions that actually move the business forward, and that's okay. It's normal, but it will help you stay stuck. So I think I wanted to unpack that a little bit today. So me lovingly calling you out for a little minute, because I watch lots of business owners spend 3 months choosing one thing, like a logo, colors, 2 shades of green, whether or not they need to show up as themselves or they're hiding behind a named brand. 4 months, 6 months of, redoing a website, yawn, and hours and hours perfecting what your Instagram or your social media looks like days and days of changing what things look like in Canva. Like, I'm listing out all the things, but it's the truth, okay? But you haven't created an offer, you haven't made a sale, you haven't asked for a sale, you haven't followed leads sitting in your inbox, because I think there's a bit of analysis paralysis. You haven't replied to that comment that's sitting on your Instagram, Facebook, or LinkedIn. You haven't started your podcast, because I know that you want to. You haven't launched your course because you're like, it's a little bit too hard, and what if someone judges me? Who gives a shit? Okay, it means that you're not backing yourself, and I think it sounds familiar across the board. And if it does, you're not alone, okay? But I think busy is not the same as being really productive. All right, it feels really productive, and I think it gives a bit of an illusion that it's progress, but it's not. And I think that it's nice to tick things off, but none of these things are growing the business, okay? And growth usually comes, I've seen it firsthand with my clients, from a handful of really uncomfortable decisions. And they're usually decisions around what you need to continue with and what you need to let go. And if it's things that you've been avoiding, then hello, I think that here we are. And the big decisions are the ones that change the business, okay? Clients you need to let go of. If you want to hone in on a particular audience, but you've been resisting. So that's what I did with health brands, and I'm not mad about it, because do you know what actually has been happening? This is a little intel from me to you for podcast listeners, is that it doesn't matter who comes to me. I still work with lots of other people that are we like you and we know that you focus on health brands, but we still want to work with you. So yeah, I work with a lot of amazing health professionals, but a couple of weeks ago, I did a VIP day with someone in the education space. Okay. And I work with a few tech companies because they love the vibe and they don't give a shit. And that's okay. But my message is in and around health brands, because they're the brands I predominantly work with big ones, small ones, and everything in between. So I think, why do we avoid like making big decisions? Because they're scary as hell. They make us pretty vulnerable, I think. And it's, much easier to redesign your website than increase your prices. Okay. It's much easier to sit and ruminate on changing your brand colors rather than making your first sales call. Okay. When I first started my business, I don't ever think I've said this story before, but I had a mortgage. I had responsibilities. I was, by myself essentially. And I had a couple of clients already because I'd been hustling on the side of my day job, but it was the days of the Messenger, so the local newspaper, the community newspaper, and I opened it up and just cold. Okay, I opened it up, I circled a couple of businesses that had bigger display ads, and I researched them a little bit, and I just called them, and I set up meetings, and that honestly, that bootstrapping mentality at the time got me to where I am now. And I'll do the same thing. If anything, if shit hits the fan or whatever, I don't even know, like crisis, I will do that, because that, I think, denotes a level of tenacity. And I think every business owner has that, and a little bit of crazy to be able to start a business and, quit a steady income and do all the things. So you have to have those things. And then we get a little bit, stuck or more reserved as we start to see success, and like thinking, if we change something, everything's going to break and I'm not going to see that consistent income anymore. But I think that level of perfectionism is like where we need to call it. So what happens inside VIP days is clients often arrive thinking that they need a completely new marketing strategy or a new website or another social media plan. But quite often by lunchtime, we've uncovered some real issues, and they're not mostly around marketing. I think it's decisions that they've been avoiding for 6 months. Sometimes it's positioning, sometimes it's a new offer, sometimes it's letting go of things that no longer align, like different services, and then like putting together the foundations and the building blocks to be able to do things that fit and work and make it seem like it makes sense, and then make it make sense that this decision is a good decision because you're backed by these funnels, these strategies, and these decisions moving forward. And it becomes easier. And then once you get that whole locked in how your ascension model is going to work and how you're going to draw in new clients, marketing becomes easier, content becomes easier, how you show up in your business becomes easier. And then when you get people that want to work with you, being able to sell to them and converting them becomes so much simpler, because you're sitting with that and it feels really good and it feels really aligned. And that's why it becomes easy, because when you're clear and when you develop those things in your business, it creates momentum. Okay, so that's how it works. That's how the flow works. And there is a cost of waiting. So every decision that you avoid has a cost. And it doesn't mean it's financial. It can be sometimes emotional. It could mean sometimes your creativity hits like a bit of a, roadblock and hits a few blows because, it's stifled. It can be emotionally. And then every month you delay, you are carrying that decision around with you, and it gets pretty heavy. It's like the stone in your shoe. You can walk around with the stone in your shoe for a little bit, but eventually you have to stop and empty it because it becomes heaps annoying. Okay. It takes up mental space. It takes up energy, clarity, creates friction and all the thing. And here's the thing that I've learned, that the decision itself is rarely as hard as carrying the weight of avoiding the actual decision. So the question that I want to leave with you today is, think about that one decision that you know that you need to make, but you haven't, because deep down, I reckon you already know what the answer is. And you probably knew before you even press play on this episode. I'm just like, making it clearer for you. So what you don't need is extra months of thinking about this, because it hurts and you're going to get sore feet. The stone gets more annoying, but you need that leadership. Okay. And leadership starts with making the decision. So if this episode has probably stirred something in you, you've realized there's a decision that's quietly been festering around for a few weeks or maybe months or maybe even years. And you don't want to work through it on your own, and you don't have to work through it on your own. And that's exactly the kind of work that we do inside my VIP Elite Intensive Strategy Days. And it's about creating clarity for you. And we unpack your business from every single angle, and it is the best. And it will create so much clarity for you. I love it in and around what you're offering, your messaging, your funnels. Funnel is a big word, but we break it down. How you're showing up, what's your visibility look like? What does your client journey look like from the minute that they cite you to then working with you or being in your world? Are you nurturing them? And what does your growth strategy look like? How are you going to grow? And I think that somewhere throughout the VIP day, I often see that we uncover that one thing that has been holding you back, that's been holding everything back in your world and in your business. And it's really amazing what can happen when you stop circulating the problem and finally make a move on what you need to do moving forward. And you'll walk away on cloud nine, okay? And that's when we celebrate with some bubbles. But it's a practical action plan. Okay, and most importantly, there's a massive confidence that comes from being able to move forward because you have a plan. So if you're really ready to stop overthinking, okay, and start leading your business with clarity, I would love to spend the day with you. Send me a message on Instagram, is where I hang out the most, or LinkedIn, DM me, and let's get going. And if you want to have a little bit more information, the show notes are there for you over on my website. So thank you so much for letting me be in your ears today. If this episode has resonated with you and you think that someone else in your world, your bestie, might benefit from this, share it with them, because knowledge is power and sharing is caring. So that's it, guys. I'll see you next week for another episode of the Hayley Osborne Show. Bye.